Hello, this is fractions number 3. Yeah, fractions number 3. So this is my third lesson about fractions. And this one's going to be all about adding fractions. So if you just want to add fractions, you can just watch this video. If you want to go back to a little more basic lessons, you can go back to the fractions 1 and 2 that I have in my playlist. And I just want to tell you that in order to do these adding fractions, you need to know a few things. Okay, so let's see. You need to know, like I said, you can look at videos 1 and 2 for basic fractions. And you need to know your multiplication math facts. Okay, that's pretty important. So if you do not know your multiplication math facts very well, it would be good to do some review. You could do flashcards. If you go to Kahoot is a great way to play some games and practice multiplication, and you need to know your math facts pretty well. Not looking at a chart. So I don't know what your level is. If you're watching this video and you're an adult, you can always go back and brush up on your math facts for multiplication. And it just makes everything easier when you're doing fractions. And you also need to know some terms related to fractions, okay? And we talked about some of those in videos 1 and 2. Okay, and some of the things we talked about was that the top number in a fraction is called the numerator. The bottom number is called the denominator. And what else? Okay, a proper fraction is when you have a smaller number on the top and a larger number on the bottom. Let's see, improper is when you have a larger number on the top and a smaller number on the bottom. Okay, so we have proper, improper, and we also have mixed numbers. So mixed numbers would be like if I divide 3 into 10 and I get 3 1/3, that's a whole number and a fraction. So that is a mixed number. So all of those are important terms to know. Another thing that you're going to need for adding fractions is you're going to know that, first of all, you cannot add the fractions unless you have the same denominator. Okay, so for an example of that would be like if I had 2/5 plus 3/5, that equals 5/5. Okay, so there you go. You add the numerators, you keep the denominator the same. Okay, that's how you add fractions. So here I have the same denominator, I keep that the same. So it's like 2 apples plus 3 apples equals 5 apples. And when I have any number over another number, that equals 1. So say I had, maybe I'll call it pie. I had 2 pieces of pie, I had 3 out of 5 pieces of pie. Altogether, I have 5 out of 5. So that is equal to 1. So any number over itself is equal to 1. So that's basically how we add fractions. You add the numerators and you keep the denominator the same. Now I can add horizontally like I just did. I could also add vertically. Okay, so sometimes you'll see the question horizontally going across. Sometimes you're going to see it vertically like this. You do it the same way. I keep my denominator the same and I add the numerator. 2 plus 3 is 5, and that equals to 1. All right, so that's easy, isn't it? Okay, so let's see. Let's try another one. Let's try 2/5 plus 3/7. Uh-oh. I have different denominators here. So we have to do something we call find a common denominator. Okay, finding a common denominator is also the same thing as finding the LCM, or the least common multiple. And what that means is it means that you're going to find smallest number that both of the denominators go into, okay? So there's a couple ways you can do that, but this is called the least common multiple. Smallest, common, it's common to both, and it's a multiple. All right, so the least common multiple. So one way that you can do that is to write down the multiples for each one. And what I like to do is pick the largest number, and I will write the multiples of that number until I get a number that the other number goes into. So the largest number is 7. So I'm going to write 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, 35. Okay, so I know 5 goes into 35. So that is going to be the least common multiple. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that for my denominator. Okay, I'm going to put an equal sign. Okay, so that is 5 goes into 35, 7 goes into 35, and now I'm going to make new fractions, and I'm going to call these equivalent fractions. And we mentioned in the other video that an equivalent fraction is when you are renaming the fraction. Like it is the same amount, it's the same like amount of pi or whatever it is that you're counting, but it's a different denominator. And what I do is I multiply the top and the bottom by the same thing to get my equivalent fraction. So 5 times 7 is 35. 2 times 7. See how it's the same number? 7 over 7 is 14. Now I can multiply by 7 over 7, and 7 over 7 equals 1. So it's like I'm multiplying by 1. 1 times anything is that number, but it looks different, okay? So the value of 2/5 is the same as the value of 14/35, but they look the same. Okay, so I do the same thing on the bottom. 7 times 5 is 35. 3 times 5 is 15. So now we have new equivalent fractions. And now I'm going to go back to my original rule about adding fractions. I keep the denominator the same, and I add the numerators. 4 plus 5 is 9. 1 plus 1 is 2. And that's my answer, 29 over 35. Now, I also mentioned in one of the other videos, we want to leave our answers in the lowest form, like reduced form. And so I look and I see, is there any number that goes into both 29 and 35? And if there was anything that I could do, then I would divide the top and the bottom by the same thing and reduce the fraction. But this one is as reduced as it can get. So this is my answer. So let's review. We have 2 different fractions, 2 different denominators. I find the least common multiple. And I did that by finding the multiples of the bigger number until I could get a number that this other number goes into. And that will work every time. Sometimes you might notice, like for this one, if I just multiplied 7 times 5, it equals 35, and that's an easy way to find a common denominator. You could just multiply them together. But sometimes you get a larger number than you want. The smallest number that you can use would be the easiest to work with. And sometimes you'll notice that you will have a number that the other one already goes into. For example, if I had 3/7 plus 5 over 21. Okay, so I already look and I say, well, 7 goes into 21. So I don't have to change this one. I just change the top one. So this one would be 7 times 3 is 21. 3 times 3 is 9. Okay, and I keep that one the same. And now I go back to my original rules about adding fractions. I keep the denominator the same, add 9 and 5, I get 14. And does anything go into 14 and 21? Let's see, 2, no, 3, no. 4, no. So, oh, 7. Oh, 7. Yeah. Okay, so 14 divided by 7 is 2. 21 divided by 7 is 3. So that one reduces to 2/3. And usually you want to put your answers to fraction problems in lowest form. So 2/3 would be the correct answer. And that's the basics of adding fractions. There's another way to find the common denominator. Okay, and I'm going to just mention this one. This one has to do with finding the least common multiple. And I'm going to do, let's see, I have some problems here. I have 91 plus over 100 plus 3 over 20. Okay, so I have a denominator of 100. Now I might see already that 20 goes into 100 5 times, so I can just use that. But there's another method I could use, and I would find the prime factors of each denominator, okay? Prime factors means that I'm going to find the prime numbers that all multiply together to get that number. So I'm going to start with what we call a factor tree. So 10 times 10, 2 times 5, 2 times 5. So I have these are 10, 2 times 5 is 10, times 2 times 5. So 10 times 10 is 100. So these are all the prime numbers that go into 100. Okay, and this one's going to be 4 times 5, 2 times 2. So this one is 2 squared times 5. So what I do is I find all the prime numbers that each denominator goes into, and then I use this acrostic and its least common multiple. It's also list, contest, and multiply. So I list and I say, okay, this one has 2 2s, so my final one is 2 2s. This one has 1 5, this one has 2 5s. So my final multiple is going to have 2 5s. So the contest means which one has the most, and then you add in or multiply in any other free alone factors. So my least common multiple is going to be 4 times 25, which is equal to 100. Okay, and that should work for every time. Every time you have two numbers that you need to multiply to figure out the least common multiple, you can use this method also, and this works every time. So if you have larger numbers, it's kind of a nice little way of doing it. If you just go through it, you should end up with the right answer. Okay, and you'll know you have the right answer if both of these numbers go into this number. So 100 goes into 100, 20 goes into 100. So that is the least common multiple. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we know that we don't have to really change 91 over 100, but we do have to change 3 over 20. So I'm going to 20 times 5 is 100, 3 times 5 is 15. This one stays the same. Denominator is 100. Add 91 plus 15 is going to be 106. And then we're going to reduce the fraction. 1 and 6/100ths, divide by 2, 1 and 3 over 50, and that will be my final answer. So that's it. Quick lesson, and I hope that helps. Please let me know in the comments if you like this video, if it was helpful, and let me know if you have any questions. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.